and really trying to understand how to extrapolate that piece. And I know Target, you might say Target Autos, related, unrelated. How do you see this?
Well, Andrew, it's an interesting time in the auto industry right now, because if you think about it, auto production has already declined by the amount typical in a recession, about 20% from its peak during the last 2 years. That was because of supply chain issues. So the economy was good, consumers were doing good, but the auto industry down about what you would expect in a bad economy. Now you have a situation where the economy is starting to weaken, consumer financials are starting to weaken, interest rates going up, causing, a more expensive for financing vehicles. So you actually might see a double hit to the auto industry. But the good news, at least for the auto industry, is because of this decline over the last 2 years, they have to rebuild their inventory. So I think the key question as they rebuild that inventory or the wild card, is whether the demand side will still be as strong with more vehicles as they finally arrive in the showrooms.
Well, that was going to be my question, though. In terms of inventory, obviously, there's been a big push to get cars back on the floors, if you will. We've also seen the impact on used cars. So what do you expect over the next, call it 6 months, 12 months in that regard?
Well, in the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to continue to see the auto industry improve, obviously, the supply chain and microchip issues. So I think you're going to see inventories start to come back up versus the very depressed levels that they are right now. But I think at the same time, you're going to start seeing some OEMs look at their inventory levels and look at their demand levels and say, gee, how much more should we bring back? Because they are definitely going to lower the amount of stock that they have in the showrooms than they did pre-COVID. That's fundamental. They've changed their operating model post-COVID. But they're going to look at that. They're going to look at their production schedules. They're going to look at the demand. They're going to look at their backlog, and then they're going to determine, okay, what does this mean for pricing? And right now, Andrew, in the industry, you see incentive levels as a percent of the price of a vehicle at the lowest they've ever been. So I think you'll start to see those creep up as consumers start to pull back.
And the related question, because I know EVs are the things that you're thinking about, how does the price of oil at this point change the dynamic or not, mixed with the headwinds of what you think is going to be happening in the economy and the additional cost that comes with buying EVs? How do you think that the automakers, in terms of manufacturing and then sales, are going to be impacted?
Well, right now, the OEMs or the automakers, their whole approach now is how do we scale and seed the market with the new EVs? And, it's pretty compelling, right? With gas, I think this morning, AAA said, the price of gas in the U.S. is about $4.92 on average across the patch. When you look at that and you look at the savings you can get from an electric vehicle, it's about $1,800 to $2,000 of savings over 5 years. So it's a very compelling offer for consumers that in 5 years you can basically pay back the incremental cost of an EV. I think the real issue, though, is getting more traction with EVs is going to require consumers to accept these higher upfront costs for vehicles in exchange for, the total cost of ownership benefits down the road. And that's a risk in the current environment. So the automakers are going to have to look really clearly at how far they price the EVs. Even though it's very compelling with high gas prices, it's tough when their family financials are a little stretched.